Who is a mover and what do they do?
So, my name is Daniel, and I work for a company out of New Hampshire. And what a mover is somebody who helps another family or person or persons who live together get their belongings from one home to another home or condo or apartment, and so on and so forth.
You graduated from Newton South High School in Massachusetts. Were there any particular memories or experiences from your childhood that influenced your career choice?
Well, nothing specifically that I really learned in school. I guess going to the gym and preparing myself, with physical education and stuff like that, making sure that my body is prepared for the future so I don't have any, injuries or any long-lasting pain. I guess that could be one small influence, but I wasn't really exposed to the moving industry while I was in high school.
When you attended community college, you also went to a cooking school.
Yes.
How have these experiences shaped your current career, if they have?
Now, honestly, there were some times where I can relate to like picking up a box of potatoes. There are some boxes in people's houses that are just about the same amount of weight, so there are certain techniques that you need to pick up in order to or learn to pick up that box of potatoes in order to not injure people around you, hurt yourself. So I guess there's some similarities in that, but mostly the reason why I didn't pursue cooking and I became a mover is because when you cook, you're there 24/7. You miss holidays. You know, if you have kids, you might miss their birth or something because of some dinners. It's a real grueling industry, and it just wasn't something that attracted me. So,
How did you first get involved in moving?
well, like I said, I was a cook at first. I was going to cooking school and whatever, and I was working a restaurant. And I was hanging out with my friend one day, and he was a mover, and he turned me on to a moving company in New Hampshire, and I started working there, and I really enjoyed it. Getting the physical exercise, the amount of money I was making, and the hours were perfect. I was able to work a job and go home and enjoy the rest of my day without, really feeling like I'm stuck in one spot at one time.
And when you started, were there any particular challenges that you faced?
Yes, I was completely unaware of the techniques in which I would need to be able to lift certain objects because some pieces are a lot bigger than us, and it takes, two or three people to pick that piece up. And in order for everybody to be able to pick that piece up, everybody has to be on the same page at the same time and in a certain position, or else you fall, or even worse, you break the customer's piece.
So it is a team job,
It is a team job, very much so.
and there's no way you could work alone.
There really isn't any way you can work alone unless it's like a small office job and they're only moving boxes. But even at that point, there are some boxes because you don't know what's inside the box initially. So anything can be inside of there. The box could be any size. So having two or more people is a plus when you go into moving. It's almost a necessity.
What would you say are the benefits of working as a mover, both physically and mentally?
Well, dealing with people, it's a big part of it because you don't know how the customer's day is going. You have no idea how your driver's day is going, or if you are a driver, or how your coworker's day is going. So you really have to maneuver or tread lightly when it comes to these jobs because one small thing can set somebody off, and you don't know what it could be and when it can happen. So imagine holding a big dresser and you say something to the guy across to you that he doesn't like, and you had no idea he was going through such a day, and he decides to let go of the piece. You're gonna have a hefty visit to the hospital, and that's not something you really want to do. And physical benefits, I learned that you really stay in shape, especially with the motions that you have to use in order to pick up dressers, big bureaus, TV stands from like 1972. It's all big, heavy, nice furniture that we usually move. It's rarely things from IKEA that give us any trouble.
Are there any different roles in this industry?
Yes, there are, and very important roles as well because some drivers have to have a medical card, DOT license, and things like that. So you can't be a drinker, you can't be a smoker. You really have to be a level-headed person in order to do that kind of job. And there's crew leaders who are a step below drivers, and sometimes drivers can be crew leaders as well if there's not enough people on the job. So the crew leader's job is to get the paperwork signed by the customer, take payment, and make sure that the truck is being loaded correctly and that everybody's grabbing the correct piece in order for everything to fit inside of the truck the way it's supposed to so we can do our job more efficiently.
So it's like a managerial role, but at the same time they also work.
Yes, 100%.
And speaking of different roles
Hmm.
in this industry, you mentioned that there can be different types of cargo. Is there any limitations on weight in terms of, are you specialized only in small home or office movings? And if you're gonna go with heavy equipment and like vending machines and that stuff,
Hmm.
is that a different kind of?
So we range in a large variety of moves. The only thing we really don't do in terms of weight limits actually there really is no weight limit. It's really depends on how many trucks we have. We have 5 trucks, so if it takes 5 trucks, we'll take 5 trucks. You know, we have enough drivers for that as well. But as far as limitations, it's really just distance. So we're not gonna well, our company and where we're stationed, our workers aren't going to go out to, let's say, Oregon or anything like that. We have other companies that use big freight trucks that are they're called line drivers. So they would go and take the shipment over to Oregon, Washington, California, all the way across the West Coast. Sometimes we go to Europe, sometimes we go to South America, so really worldwide. And then they would hire an outside third party to help unload the um the cargo.
So your job ends at the airport or
Pretty much, yeah,
cargo port.
pretty much.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned certification.
Hmm.
Is that a procedure that you have to go through each year? Can you talk more about that certification?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually in the process of becoming one of the drivers. So I would have to get my medical card certification and then also my DOT certification. So, you know, just a couple things just to make sure that I'm somebody who they can trust behind the wheel to drive the truck and be responsible for other people's stuff.
Is that more in terms of cash?
Oh yeah, better pay,
Hmm.
a lot better.
What are the essential skills required for this profession?
You have to be in great shape. You have to have a decent head on your shoulders mentally because there are a lot of things that you can look at that are big in size, but in weight it's not too much, and that can kind of overwhelm some people and throw other people off and discourage them from the job and make them feel more fatigued just by looking at the piece without even touching it. So you really have to have that mental on your shoulders and also be in decent physical shape. Like me personally, I stretch every morning at 5 o'clock before I go to work, and actually before I even get ready because I know that if I don't stretch, I'll cramp up, and that's not a good thing.
Did you have injuries?
No, I haven't had any injuries, thank God. Thank God. Only cramps. Only cramps.
So if you go with workout routine every day and stretch, would that be the minimum the minimum requirement for a new person that comes into this industry to just be to maintain themselves sufficient for this job?
Very much so, and especially eating right. But at the same time, I don't want to confuse the public because everybody is different. You know, everybody's born different. You know, everybody has their certain limitations going in that, you know, not they don't want to talk about, or, you know, they they do talk about, and it just hinders them a little bit from the job. But they're still able to do it. You know.
Let's start from your first job. Tell us how was that experience? How did you find your first job?
Okay, so the first ever moving job I went on, well, that I remember, and it was very memorable because I had to help the guys with a very big a very big piece. It was maybe 6 or 7 feet by 5 feet, and it had gold on the sides of the pillar on all four sides, and then in between it was glass, and it opened like a big cabinet. So there was a top piece and the bottom piece, and so there were four of us that had to get on it, and I remember helping them pull it out, and once they got off, I couldn't move. I was just holding it there because it was just so heavy to me, and I didn't know how to really pick it up. I was about 19 or 20 at the time, so I was not experienced for this at all. And someone had to switch out and come help me because I wasn't able to carry the piece. So from that point on, I decided I needed to take care of my body in order to really get this job going and make it worth my while, or else I get fired.
Were there any specific requirements when you went for your first job?
Now, the only thing that I can say about that is I wasn't really told about how heavy objects can be going into the move, but I always stay positive and have a you know, pretty charismatic, excited experience of going into work and making sure that I don't have any negative thoughts, so I can get the most out of the job 100%, and use my strength to the fullest. But at this point, I was so unaware to the point that it took me by surprise. Like I was saying earlier about being overwhelmed, but I was overwhelmed when I had the piece in my hand instead of just looking at it. So very close call. Could have costed us about $2,500 in damage. Very expensive piece. And there's no real safety guidelines. Some companies, they don't provide really enough equipment to really support that, because mostly they just rely on I hate to say it, but hope in their employees to be able to get the job done. That's why they have the only safety thing that we really have is insurance, and that's the company's insurance. It's really not yours individually, especially if you just started. You're not insured. So
And how does that happen? Does it
you sign a paper basically saying that yeah, if you get hurt from this time to this time, it's on you. So if you really want to work here, you have to sign this paper. It's almost like a non-disclosure agreement. So
like a waiver?
hmm
And do all companies do that, or was it just your particular experience?
I can't say all companies do that because I've only worked for a couple of companies, maybe two or three, and so pretty much all three of those were the same thing.
If you look at the job description for a mover, almost all of them, at least now, state that there is a limit. You have to be able to lift 50 pounds. And I see that number in a lot of postings. I don't know why. As you mentioned, there is no gold standard, but I was wondering if there is some logic to this 50 pounds.
Personally, I don't think that they should be saying 50 pounds. I think they should put 100, honestly, because 50 pounds, it's nothing. It's 50. A 12-year-old can pick up a 50-pound dumbbell, and that's it. A 50-pound box of books is nothing.
Could you describe a challenging moving job that you've took up recently or in the past few years? Like a really challenging one.
Now, this is another thing they don't tell you. The geography of homes really comes into play when it comes to moving jobs. So we'll have jobs where we can't get the truck into the driveway, meaning there is a certain level of incline that the truck's brakes won't support. So we don't even try to go of it. And sometimes these driveways end up being 150 feet to 200 feet long, sometimes up to 50 yards long. So we can't drive up it, we can't go down it, so we have to walk the boxes from the house all the way to the truck. And I remember this job in 2018 where we had that specific exact situation. And not only was the driveway 25 yards long, easy, twists and turns, very narrow. We can't get the truck down there, so we had to park it on the street. And when we got to the house, it was like an NBA player's house or a celebrity's house, huge house. And we had to empty all of it into two trucks. And so now we're going into this house that down a driveway that's 25 yards long. We're going into the house. We're carrying triple dressers, double dressers, beds, couches, TV stands, all sorts of craziness. And it took about 12 hours to do the whole job. If we started at 7 o'clock in the morning, ended at 8, 9 o'clock, all day move. But I will say, at the end, they did tip us about $200 each, so it did make the job a little bit worth it at that point. But yeah, that was probably the worst experience that I've had moving so far.
Is the furniture usually pre-packed? Like,
No, we do all the packing either the day before or same day. And in this situation, we did the packing the same day. We wrap everything, we put it all in boxes, tape it, label it, put it on the truck, inventory it to make sure that everything's there. And then we do inventory on the drop off as well. But luckily, this is one of those overseas moves, so we just had to put it in the truck, and they took care of it at the airport or the loading dock or wherever they send it off to. So yes, there's a lot of pre-packaging before we get to going.
if you would be choosing between working, getting a job in downtown or in the countryside, what would your pick be?
100% in the countryside. Yeah,
So downtown is the main.
downtown is one of the worst. Like if I was I would never be a new mover in New York City. That is the worst possible situation you could ever ask for ever in your lifetime because you're going upstairs each time. And I don't know if you've been to New York City, but there's only a certain kind of building that has an elevator. And so, yeah, you don't want to be in that situation where you have to go up to the 30th floor with no elevator. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, that must be an experience.
yeah. Not an experience I can speak about, but I can definitely tell you that I've heard a couple experiences, and I'm glad I haven't had to deal with that.
What about Boston?
Boston, no, I don't do Boston at all. I've had one move in Boston, but luckily it was a house. It was a house, so I didn't have to deal with anything like that.
Can you share your most positive experience with your job?
Most positive experience. So I took a side job the other day with a line driver. I think it was about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it was nice. The lady was she was an attractive lady. She looked great, and she was okay. She had a little bit of a bad attitude. She had a lot of stuff, but all in all, on that day, I made $500 for 10 hours of work, and also got paid on the clock. So it was pretty nice.
Are people, clients, usually frustrated when you begin your work?
Now, that's a very interesting question because a lot of people would take it as frustration, but me personally, you have a bunch of random people in your home, or your soon to be home, your old home, taking your stuff, putting it in a truck, and sending it to your new home that you plan to live in or your temporary home. Now, I don't know about you, but where I come from, you have a bunch of random people in your house taking your stuff. It gets a little you get a little worried, you get a little bit nervous. So, on top of that, you have expenses cost because there's no move that you're going to really do that's going to cost less than $1,000. That's easily just a minimum amount that you're going to be paying to move your stuff from one home to another. So, costs and play. If you have kids, it's very hard to take care of your kids, especially at a very young age, and have movers around the house. So it's a very hectic, more like anxiety situation for these customers. So we try to make sure that it's a more calming, comforting experience for those people. So we don't see frustration and people getting angry and people getting worried about their stuff being taken, broken, or damaged. You know,
So you try to talk to people when you come.
100%. I always make sure that I have a conversation for the people, ask them how they've been, where they're headed, where they're from, just to have a nice little friendly rapport with them.
Would you say that is a very important part of the job?
100% very important part of the job.
What happens if you get an uncooperative coworker on a job?
Uncooperative.
Yeah.
Well, usually you just try to speak less to that person because they'll try to say anything that you say, they'll try to twist it, make it about them, have for any reason to stop working, quit the job, and sit down or leave the site. So usually I make sure that I really don't say any words that could trigger people into having that kind of a reaction, and I make sure that I avoid carrying heavy pieces with that person. And that's I feel that's the best way to handle coworkers with a negative attitude.
And why do these coworkers get that attitude?
Well, I believe it stems from outside of the work, 100%. They have because most of the people that work in moving jobs, it's I would say like 25% of the people have their heads on straight, and those are usually like the drivers and the team leaders and stuff like that. And the rest of them are usually people that have been in trouble with the law. They have they come from single parent homes, or they are a single parent themselves, having mother issues and things like that that they bring into the workplace, and they don't really know how to really separate home and work life, and home and work life attitude.
How do you encounter if you see a potential conflict arising between your client and one of the coworkers?
A client and a coworker.
Yep.
Ooh, I try my best not to intervene, but whenever I have a chance to get the coworker alone, I just talk to them and say, "Hey, look, this is a potential tip situation, so let's try our best to, not interact with the customer in any negative way to affect that." So, it's best to motivate your coworker with money, instead of anything else, because that's probably why they're upset in the first place, because they don't want to be dealing with a customer's attitude if they're not getting paid enough to deal with the customer's attitude. So, yep.
Are there a lot of people who come in their first day and understand that this job is not for them and they just want to drop everything and go
Yeah,
away?
100%. And they actually do drop everything and go.
And
They
what
do.
happens then?
Then we just get somebody else or whoever picks up the slack, like the famous saying, there's once you get good at your job, you get so good that you end up doing work somebody else's work, you know?
What do you think, apart from the obvious, those situations happen when new people come into this industry
Hmm.
and they just see everything and they quit? Is it? I'm pretty sure it's not because of the weight, because when you go into a moving job, you should understand that it's
Hmm.
about weightlifting.
Yes.
What are the other reasons that could trigger?
Well, I believe I can't say a lot of people, but there are a large amount of people who are weak-minded individuals, so they can't really see a large task and think that they are able to complete the task because it is so large. Even if they have more 4 or 5 people helping them with the task, they single it to themselves and things like that, and they just get overwhelmed and overpressured, and they can't deal with it.
They can deal with the pressure.
They can't deal with the pressure, even though the pressure that is there is created on their own.
Have you seen people who were truly delighted in their first day about the job?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those people. I wake up and I enjoy moving a lot because I believe I'm helping people begin their new lives, ending their old ones, and it's really just a community service to me. So, yeah.
Not many people treat this job with respect, like a doctor, for example, but you do actually influence people's lives and help them.
Yeah. And they remember that. They remember it every time.
What about, as you mentioned before, you haven't had any serious physical issues at your job, but you did have back pains.
Yes, I have had back pains before, but usually the way that cuz when I feel it, I make sure that I stretch immediately, maybe eat a banana or something like that. And then I have weights at home that I use, and I usually use the weights to kind of target that area, and the pain kind of goes away.
When you have new people working with you, do you address their safety in terms of injury prevention, or is it the manager's responsibility?
Really, it's everybody's responsibility, but seldomly do I, tell people, hey, don't do this, don't do that, because everything really is a learning experience. And if you really want to be a mover, if this is something that you want to do, you'll really just push through it.
If you end up at a new job with people you haven't seen before, do you usually build a bridge of communication before you start the job, or is it just like an ongoing thing? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't matter because a job is a job. Just like, when you get ready for work, you have coworkers, you either talk, you have coffee or whatever, and you sit down and you get your job done. Just like that, we know that we have a job to do. We know it's going to take a team effort. We just go in and really just do it, whether your name is John, Jim, or Jerry.
Let's talk about tools and equipment.
hmm
What is the usual list of tools that you use?
So when we go into a job, a lot of the times we do have to do extra packing, and that requires tape, some boxes. They call them book boxes, four, fives, threes, just going up in size. And we have wardrobe boxes that you put clothes in. There's even a bar, kind of like a little closet, a mobile closet that we put with for the hangers. Put the clothes in there, and we have ratchet straps that we use to strap off the truck. We also have dollies, two wheelers, four wheelers as well. What else? There's also these straps that you wrap around your hand to help assist you with pieces that are a little bit heavier. So for new guys, they use that a lot in order to be able to pick up the pieces that they feel they are that overwhelms them or they can't really do. So it gives them an assist of confidence and they're able to pick that piece up. And those are just some of the tools that we use. We bring a toolbox as well for with screwdrivers and all sorts of tools as well to take apart beds, take mirrors off of dressers, disconnect TV wires. So we're kind of just like handymen at the same time as movers.
And usually this equipment is provided by the company.
Yes, provided by the company, but most of the times, drivers or crew chiefs they have their own toolboxes that they carry with them everywhere because they just feel comfortable with their own tools. hmm
Do you get extra pay for packing the boxes
No,
or furniture?
no. In fact, the pay scale that we get paid is a lot different than what the customer pays for us to be there. It's actually three times the amount. So let's say for the new guy that let's say he starts today, they might start him off at $17 an hour. But when you see on paper how much they're charging for that guy to be there, it's more like 70 to $120 for an hour for that guy.
How does the charging usually happen? Um, do people pay for a person by hour rate, or do they pay for the volume, or
Hourly rate.
and there is someone who's standing there with a stopwatch and measuring the time?
Yes, we have a person at the office who also is like human resources dispatching, and they make sure that they have the time we were there, and the time that we leave, the time that we take a break, and the time that we're at the customer's house, the time that we're on the road, the time that we're at the new customer's house. So they have all the logistics for all those numbers coming in constantly.
And did you have issues with clients about time?
Sometimes you'll have some customers say, "Oh, wow, you guys really saved me some money for cutting it so short and doing it quicker." And then you'll have some people that say, "Well, that's a lot for one guy, but there's five of us. And so you get some complaints, you get some people who are happy about it, but all in all, they like the work that we do, and they like the end result. So
How is the compensation structured when you just begin working in the industry, and
hmm
is there a ladder you can move up?
yes, there is raises you can get, but a lot of people they don't get raises because they don't ask. That's what I've learned so far in this company. If you don't ask for more money, you're not going to get any more money. So people will work there for 2, 3 years and still stay at the same pay rate, where somebody like me is going in there because I know my worth in my work and how hard I work when I'm out there on the job. So probably every 3 months I'm in there asking, hey, can I get a raise? Like, can I get, and I usually get it, or they say, I see what I can do, and I probably end up getting it a month later.
How do you usually ask for an increase? I mean, is there a reason for it, or you just...
I just want more money, so I
No,
just
I
ask.
mean,
Yeah.
it's understandable that you
Yeah.
want more money, but what is the reasoning behind your conversation with the employer?
My conversations usually go like, hey, blah, blah, blah. You see me working. You haven't had any complaints. I need more money for so and so because I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and whatever comes to my mind at the time. So I just ask for more money. Well, oh, okay, you can't do this much. How much can you do? Okay, that's not going to work for me. Is there anything we can do, or I will have to find another place of employment? And that usually is what hooks them on.
You mentioned 17 bucks to $17 an hour as a
Hmm.
starting rate for a new person.
Yes.
Is this somewhat a standard? So if you come in, $17 is what you're gonna get.
In this day and age, yes, for certain people, but I didn't I didn't start there. I made sure that yeah, I used my experience and my ability to speak to not start at 17.
Yes, but for the general public, they
Hmm.
usually start with $17,
Yes.
and that lasts for like 3 trips or...
I mean, for the average person, you'll start at 17, and then for however long you might get a raise that you didn't know was coming just because your probation period is up, or if you don't, because it usually the probationary period usually lasts about 3 months, and then they're like, oh, okay, you've been here every day, you work hard, you don't complain, and no one complains about you. Here's a raise, and that usually happens after 3 months, and then after that, usually on average, it's about 6 months to a year.
And what is the pay there on
Um,
average?
I usually can't speak, but it's probably a dollar or two more for the average person.
So usually doesn't go beyond like 22, 23 bucks within the first year.
Yeah, I would assume so. I would assume so.
What about bonuses and tips? You mentioned that you had a few.
Yes, there are tips, and that depends on the customer. And that's why I say speaking to the customer with respect, asking them how their day's going, and really making the move easier on them is very important because they will give us, there'll be five guys on the job, and they'll dish out an extra $500 just to make sure that the five guys have an extra $100 in their pocket when they leave today because you made the experience so enjoyable for them. They want to gift you and say show their gratitude with a little extra money on top of what they're paying for the move.
Is it appropriate to ask the company for a bonus?
Yes, that's very appropriate, I believe, in any company, not just moving.
After you've done a few jobs, you just come up and say, I'm so good, whatever I
Yeah, I
deserve.
mean, I wouldn't say a few jobs because we do a job every day, so it's like about maybe even two jobs a day sometimes. So I would say 7 to 8 jobs a week. So that times a month, I guess that's what, 30, 32, 28 to 32 jobs a month. So yeah, after 3 months of that, a couple hundred, 100 jobs, and no one complains. You don't complain. Your work is great. I believe after 100 successful jobs, you deserve a raise.
Have you noticed any cultural or regional differences in terms of jobs?
Yes, 100%. There are some customers that look at you a little bit differently because of where you come from, how you speak, and how you look, skin color wise, and even in the job. In the job, that's why I was saying to you earlier what I was saying. But in the New Hampshire area, I've experienced there are some racial indifferences in the workplace, on the work site, customers, coworkers, management. But I wouldn't say it's in the terms of hate or anything that would hinder your pay or your hours on the job. It's just there are a lot of older people in the workforce, so they never had to really deal with anybody going against their beliefs or their comments or anything like that. So they get a little bit more comfortable than most. Um, it is offensive, but I don't think that I have had too much of an experience to the point where I need to deal with the offense, if that makes sense to you. You
So
know?
you usually don't go offensive if you hear.
No, 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 no. Because there are things that are a lot more important than what comes out of somebody's mouth, especially if it's not affecting your pay or your physical or mental health.
Has anything changed in the industry since you've started?
No, not really.
Not even pay?
um,
It's been what, like 5 years?
yeah, 5 years. No, not even pay because when it comes down to it, moving, people always need to move. People are always buying houses. I mean, a little bit less now. That's why the field is actually dying down, especially when it comes to cross country moves because people can't afford to move that far away. So a lot of more local moves have been popping up. So people still need to move, and as you know, people still need to work. So they're taking full advantage of that, and I think it's brilliant for one. But at the same time, they're not helping or hurting anybody in the market.
Does it make more sense in terms of money and quality for a person to avoid moving companies and find directly movers like on Craigslist or whatever?
Now, I would say no, because you're going to get the same rate at the company as you would on Craigslist. And let's say the Craigslist person that you ask for some reason isn't a company and it's just me and you, for instance, going to go help you move your stuff. You're not insured. You don't know what truck size they're going to come with. You don't know the estimate. You don't know if they need a pack. So they might not even be financially prepared to handle your move on the side of you not being financially prepared to handle the work quality that they're going to give you. Because if something breaks and it was very expensive and they can't afford to replace it, or they can't afford to reimburse you for the price of that object, then you're in a very sticky situation. So it's a slippery slope. So I would say you're better off going with the company.
And could it be dangerous too? You never know who you're gonna let
Uh,
into your house.
100%, 100%.
For someone interested in the moving industry, what your advice be to begin with?
My advice would be take care of yourself, eat well, stretch, and make sure that you know that, well, for one, you're a mover. How many times have you seen a house and say, oh, wow, that's nice? Now imagine all the stuff that is in that big, nice house that you're looking at, and imagine moving it all from one big, nice house to a either small apartment or a bigger, nicer house with more stairs, more challenging driveways. Just mentally prepare yourself for anything that can happen because you can have a move that's only 25 boxes into a single studio apartment assisted living home with an elevator to you moving statues in front of somebody's house to another house, putting it in a truck and everything like that without a lift gate. So it varies from time to time, house to house. Also, weather conditions. We're in New England. It's gonna snow. It's gonna rain. It's gonna be cold. So you'll have to prepare for that.
If you're beginning
Hmm.
in this industry, is there something particular you should look for in a company that you're applying to?
Yes, 100%. I would say look into a company with a minimum of 20 employees or more because the worst thing you could do is jump into a moving company that is short staffed, like the place that I work out. And because we have maybe 10 guys, so all 10 guys need to be there every day. We have 5 drivers, 5 helpers.
And apart from that, insurance maybe?
Yeah,
No?
that too. Make sure they have good benefits for you because if you get hurt They don't care. They won't call you. They'll just tell you to fill out the paperwork, and you'll get one third of what you usually make.
And do they usually pay in cash or?
It's usually all on the books. I know a certain company that does do cash only, but I've never worked for them because I've never heard anything good about them. Sorry.
Um, how do you deal with difficult clients?
Hence, I just, keep my head up and do my work because you don't want to see anybody manipulating your mood, especially at any time where they're in power because they're going to take advantage of that. And you don't want to lose your temper because somebody is exposing your negative energy and seeing that it's feeding onto you and making your job more difficult.
What were the latest good clients that you had?
Latest good clients, I mean,
How do you define a good client?
Um, I think that's a better question for me to answer. To define a good client is somebody who, when you first arrive to their house, they're happy to see you. They have a smile on their face at 7:05 in the morning. They're greeting you. They offer you water and snacks, and if there's anything they can do to help, even though they hired you to move, usually that's a good sign of somebody who is a good customer right off the bat. And then they usually tip at the end. They usually buy you lunch. It's like the perfect moving situation for a mover.
Are there any jobs that you turned down for for any reason?
Um, no, we do 99.9% of moves that we get contracted.
Would you say that office moves are better than private house moves?
Now, that is, I will only say in terms of access. It's easier to access offices most of the time than there is to access individual homes because it's a business. Just being there on foot without a moving truck, they want you to be able to access easy. So you have to get in there and get out very easy. So office moves are easier on the body physically, but I would prefer house moves because that one on one individual interaction with the client and helping them begin their life. I know businesses, they're also, making money and stuff like that, but customers that are just there for their home and their home only, that's where they're going to be. That's where they're going to raise their kids. That's where they're going to eat dinners. Those people are going to tip you money. Office people, they're getting paid, the company's paying for it. They're just there to supervise. So it's not really a personal thing. It's more business when you have to move a business.
Do you have night shifts?
No. The only time we are doing anything at night is when the job calls for an extended amount of, you know, pieces that need to be put in the house. And that's why I was saying when you're there for 10, 12 hours, maybe 15 hours sometimes, if you have to drive to Connecticut or a state like that or Virginia, then that's the only time you're working at night. But now that we're getting close to the winter time, it's going to be dark at 4:45. So it's going to be pretty much a lot more night moves extending past 5, 6 o'clock. So I would that would be considered night since it's dark out.
Do you get urgent jobs?
Like jobs that get called in same day and we do same day. Not that I'm aware of, but I'm pretty sure if we could, we would.
Are there any types of clients, jobs that you would advise new movers to avoid?
Um, no, because you can't avoid a job. And I'll say this because either you are there to work or you're staying home. That's really what it is because these people, they call us to perform a service because they need to get out of their current situation because they can't afford it and it needs to be done urgent. And they trust us to help them, and we are supposed to trust our coworkers and our drivers and things like that to be there for those situations in order to make the job work. And if you don't want to be there to make the job work, then you can find somewhere else to work.
Is it okay to ask questions about the job before the job?
Yes, 100%.
Do you get like any information?
Yeah,
Uh,
you get the information. We have a sheet that we look at before the job, and so it says, Daniel, Jim, Connor, you're working from Amherst Street and you're moving to Lowell, Massachusetts. It's about 9,800 pounds that you have to load up, and you have to take it there in 1 day, and you should be done around 3 or 4 o'clock.
does it say how much people are going to work with you?
Yes. So it'll usually say 3 people, and it'll say their names, who you're working with. So
What about apps and websites where you find a job? Or do you just find a company and you stick with it?
yes, so you can shop around, and they'll give you an estimate. We have a sales guy who goes to the houses, and they'll walk around, they'll talk with you, and they'll give an estimate about how many pounds it's going to be, well, how many rooms, steps, and everything like that. So we kind of get a layout of what we're getting into before, and you can opt out and say, "Hey, I'm not doing this job. I'm going home." But you probably won't be having work for the next day or ever again in that field unless you find another company.
So they usually call on you rather than you choose a job from some sort of.
Yes, the job is already picked. They have the job laid out, and then it's pretty much like a basketball game. You know, you have the team that you set up. You know where you're gonna play, and coach helps you, make sure that you win.
Do you usually work within a single team?
Yes, but it's not the same people every time. It's one of the same people because we have such a small employee field or roster, and so yeah, we usually rotate through a group of 10.
And if you found a company that you're going to work for, is
Hmm.
there any sense in monitoring Craigslist and other internet sources for side hustles?
Yes, of course, because there's always more work to be done. Always people who can't afford a company to move, so they will take a chance on 1 or 2 people or 3 people to help them move on Craigslist that either have a professional job and they don't care about insurance or anything, they just know them or something like that.
You mentioned that you have a passion for hip hop and rap music.
Yes.
How does that go with your current job?
So it doesn't really correlate a lot, but I do get to see a lot of new people every single day, every single week. So to let them know that I do music and let them know that I rap is one more person that knows my name, our record label's name, RTR Road to Rich Records, and Saint C's name, the owner of the record label. So it's pretty much free promotion on my end.
It's a networking platform for you
Very
guys.
much, very much.
Um, to conclude, what are your final thoughts and insights that you would like to share with young aspiring movers?
So people who actually are crazy enough to say, "Hey, I want to be a mover. This is what I want to do with my life. I want to help the people get from house A to house B, companies from building A to building B." For those people who really want to do that, I say, man, go for it. Take care of your body. Get the techniques down. Make sure that you're always lifting properly and making sure that you don't throw your back out trying to lift with your back instead of your legs. Um, uh, Take care of yourself mentally as well. Be very, very patient. Be very open minded, very community minded because you never know who you're going to run into. And just enjoy yourself because you're getting paid to work out. Why not? Why not have fun?
What is the most common misconception that people have with this job?
The most common misconception, 100%, is that it is hard. It's not. It's not a hard thing to do because you do two things. You pick something up and you put it down. It's really all you have to do. All this other stuff that I said about self preparation, yes, that goes into it, but it's just common sense. It should be just muscle memory. Eat a couple bananas and some fruits and vegetables a day. Stretch and work out and take care of your body. You'll be able to do this job. Anybody can do it as long as they go in and do it.
Daniel, thank you for your time in this conversation. Thank you, Daniel. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure with you too, Alex. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for watching. To support our mission, please check out our website linked in the description below. This is Unbound, a project created to explore various professions from all perspectives. I will see you next time. Stay curious, stay unbound.